All right.
Good afternoon and welcome to our career corner for today. And today we are being joined by Christian Bernal. He is a tattoo artist out of the Chicagoland area. And Christian, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Where do you want me to start? I'm an artist. We went to school together. I started off in a junior college and I finished up at a state college. I got stuck doing a different job, a job straight out of college for quite a while until I realized I was miserable, and did what I needed to do to get into the tattoo field. Now I've been there about 8-9 years.
Okay, awesome. And so you chose this career because?
Um, because I was miserable doing anything else, really. I don't know how much I can get in, how detailed a response you want to that. I was miserable doing my other job, and I knew that I needed to be doing something, making art in general, or being around creative people. It was originally sort of my plan before I went into school, and I was offered an apprenticeship, but it seemed a little crazy at the time, and I passed it up. Some days I kick myself for doing that, and then sometimes I think I did the right thing. It's just, it goes back and forth.
Definitely, that's how life choices happen, right?
Yeah.
You get offered and you're like, oh, maybe I should have done that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other things that have made you who the artist you are today because
Hopefully, yeah.
of all the stuff that happened before that. So we have some questions from Miss Locum's 7th and 8th grade art students. So I thought that was pretty awesome. And so I'm gonna have you field some of those.
Awesome.
So where you learned to do this, so you had an apprenticeship. So tell us a little bit more about that apprenticeship.
I did indeed. That's a long answer. I'll try to be quick about it though. I do tend to be verbose. Yes, apprenticeship is necessary. There are tattoo schools, but I wouldn't recommend them at all. Typically, if you went into a tattoo shop and were like, yeah, I got my degree at whatever tattoo school, they'd laugh you out of there at best. I did get an apprenticeship. It was a little bit different. I was 38 when I started my apprenticeship, whereas most people started like around 19, 20, maybe 18. So mine did go a little bit quicker, and the shop that I ended up in was kind of like was not the most professional or business-like of shop. That's the best way I can put it. So after a while, it was kind of like you're just going to have to learn on the fly kind of thing. I did go to, like I said, I did go to art school, and I found that the rest of the tattooists or tattoo artists in the shop, just because of that, just because I had that in my background, once I sort of even had a rudimentary feel of how to use the equipment, I was able to be at their level or very close. That goes a long way. So yes, you do learn a lot. I would highly recommend an apprenticeship. But I would also, not everybody would, but I would recommend at least getting or going for like an associate's. I think having some art background, knowing your fundamentals of 2D design, fundamentals of 3D design, and having like art history in your background. And I get it, art history is kind of boring, and if you end up with the wrong teacher, it can be hell. But I think it's really necessary to know what's been done, what's out there, and sort of have that stuff in your vocabulary.
That might lead into one of the questions the students asked. How are you so precise with your work?
Same as any other job. Practice. You know, it's that how do you get to Carnegie Hall thing. That's it. It's just to keep trying and keep doing it. I guarantee you, my first tattoo, I wasn't, exact, or I was. Again, if you're drawing a lot, you're going to be used to those sort of motions. And that's probably one thing that people will constantly tell you is, if you're looking for an apprenticeship or thinking about it, is draw and draw and draw, and then when you're sick of drawing, draw some more. So that's just it. Practice.
Um, One question was, what is the hardest tattoo you've ever had to draw?
Um, I don't know. People ask those a lot. What's the weirdest tattoo you've ever done? What's this? What's and that I don't know. I don't think of them like that. I do enjoy a challenge, and there are ones that there have been times where, before I started, I had to go around the corner and be like, okay, you can do this, but um, I can't say that anything's been hard. Again, if you practice and know your craft or what you're doing, there isn't anything that's hard per se. There are times that things can be challenging because you always want to push yourself. But I can't say that any drawing that I've done has been hard, if that makes sense at all.
I found this one to be a very thought-provoking question. How much ink do you have to use for 1 week? How
Yeah,
much?
I've seen that one. That's an odd one. That's very hard to say. I mean, it depends on where you're at, what your clientele wants, what you're doing. I get like an 8-ounce bottle of black ink probably about twice a year. Um, Colored inks, it just depends on, sometimes you go through a spurt where you use a lot of, where people want a lot of colored stuff. Sometimes you'll go through a spurt where nobody wants anything but names and black and gray stuff. So it's really hard. You're typically going to want to keep around black and all your fundamental colors. You'll get to know your client base. You'll get to know your area where you're at. Typically, if you have an apprenticeship, before you actually start, whoever is teaching you will tell you what you need, and you will eventually you will learn to tailor what you're buying with what you need.
Excellent. I'm assuming that this one means, like, do you feel any carpal tunnel? But they're asking if you ever like get hand cramps while you're
Yeah,
working.
I have, even not being in it forever. Sometimes it's been switching from one machine to another, and your hand just getting used to it. I know several older guys, over the past, I would say 20, 30 years, tattooing has kind of gone through a renaissance where technology sort of caught up with it. A lot more artists came into it, and things have, people have been able to look at making their career longer, and they've been able to figure out how to deal with the longevity, I guess. Typically, tattoo machines were actually, I shouldn't say not heavy, but I mean, once you're there for a long time, they could be very heavy. Whereas now people are making them with different materials and different kinds of motors, so that they're not as fatiguing, and not and you won't end up with carpal as soon, or it really depends. There's a lot of, again, it's different things that you have to do to maintenance on yourself. Like, I try to stay in shape because I sit so much for my job. So yeah, maybe you have to do hand exercises. Maybe you have to, it's just a matter of taking care of yourself, and not trying to, there's no reason you need the heaviest machine in the world. It doesn't make you any better. It doesn't, yeah. Does that answer it? Is that kind
No,
of
that's good. Um, is it hard to draw stuff on the human body?
No, it's not any harder than, drawing on paper. Really, I guess it can be tricky. Sometimes, when you're making things curve and people's bodies move, um, there's things you have to take into account. But no, it's not any harder than drawing on paper.
Um,
And that's assuming that they're talking about drawing and not just going at taking a tattoo machine with nothing on somebody's body and going at it. There's when they're asking me about drawing on people's body, I'm assuming that they're asking, I'm going to be drawing with markers on somebody's body. I'm not going to just pick up a tattoo machine and just free go at whatever.
so you draw. So I've never gotten a tattoo before, nor have I seen one. Um, so, and I assume many of my students are the same. So you draw it first, and then you go in with the machine.
Typically, yeah. Typically, we're going to want to make a line drawing beforehand and make a stencil that will put on you before the tattoo. Some people specifically will come to you because they want you to draw on them, or sometimes the stencil will be so big that you're going to end up drawing part of it in. Sometimes you want to stencil part of it in and draw a background. Sometimes people will come to you with a bunch of stuff that's already there and want you to draw the background in for them. In which case you'll be using markers, and then there's different products that you can put over that to make it stay like a stencil.
This is a Miss Bauer question. So
Okay.
is it different when you're having to cover up something? Do you have people coming in and asking to cover up something that maybe an ex-boyfriend's name or an ex-girlfriend's name? Or
All the time.
and does that make it harder on the process, or is it just about the same?
No, it does not make it harder. It is tricky. Probably the hardest part about it would be dealing with people and people's expectations and what they realize can be done with a cover up. A lot of times people will think that we'll have to tell them it's tattoo ink, not tattoo paint, because they think that if you can put anything over it, and that's not the case. Something in there with black is not going to be covered by anything other than black. A lot of times when we're doing a cover up, you're not necessarily trying to just cover everything, because then we'd just be making everything black. Sometimes you're just wanting to distract from it. Sometimes it's in there well enough that you're never going to get rid of it. And sometimes it's faded pretty well, and color will kind of cover it up. It's not really covering it up. It's sort of mudding it out, if that makes sense.
Okay. What's your favorite thing about what you do?
Oh God, I don't know. I swear I did read these before. But that's another hard one, because we get asked that quite a bit, and I don't know what my favorite thing is. There's so many great things. But it probably is just it's that I'm not doing what I was doing before. It's that I get to be around creative people and do creative things most days. Part of it, I think my biggest thing is that I know what I could be doing, because I was stuck in another profession for so long that when I'm there, I'm just happy to be there. I'm happy, so yeah, it's like I don't need much more.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
What are some of the difficult parts of your job? I know you have said something in the conversation about people. Take it from there.
That's it. It's probably people. Like any service job, whether you're working at McDonald's or you're working at a tattoo shop, the most difficult thing is going to be people. People getting mad, people getting angry, people not having a vocabulary to be able to explain themselves well. I always thought, until I started tattooing, that everybody could do what I did. Everybody could draw. They just needed to practice. Everybody could do all this stuff, and no, that's really not the case. Not only can they not do that, they can't put it into words. So trying to get people to put what they want into words, and correct words, like often, like one of the big things we'll get is people mean they want something colored in, but they'll be like, shading. I want you to shade this. That's a totally different thing. Shading is different. I want a shadow here. Shadow and shading are different. Shadow, shading, and coloring are different things too, or at least to an artist in our book. So a lot of times it's almost like when you go to a Chinese restaurant or another restaurant where people don't speak language, and you've got to try to understand broken English. It's the same. It's the same thing, trying to parse out what they're wanting and what they don't want. That's really the hardest part, is working with people, or at least for me, that is the hardest part.
Um, Besides the monetary benefit of your job and career, what are some of the other gains that you get as a human being from what you're doing, that are, I always tell my students, we all need to get paid to do something, because
Yeah.
we all want to live somewhere and drive a car and eat. But there are other things in our careers that drive us to go to work every day, even when there are days that are really tough getting to work or getting up to get to work. So what are those things for you, Christian?
Um, well, again, it's knowing what I could be doing. Part of the reason I had got into tattooing was, I mean, no matter what you do or what your passion is, in some way or another, you've got to monetize something, no matter how sacred. And that was actually part of the reason I didn't take an apprenticeship in the beginning. Was like I had started art school, and I was able to sort of poo-poo it away, like, oh, I'm not going to be doing cartoon characters, every day, God. But now a cartoon character comes in, I'm like, yes, that Tasmanian devil is awesome. But and here's another thing I want to add. Before, it took me a long time to find an apprenticeship. It took me about a good 4 years, and that was 4 years of like going into every tattoo shop I could, within 2 hours of anywhere that I lived. And talking to the artist there or the owner and trying to get an apprenticeship. So I got to meet a lot of people. One of the people that I got to meet was, some of them would be very cool and would tell you everything, and some people you wouldn't want anything to do with you. One of the guys I met was an older tattooist, and he'd let me hang out and talk with all his artists. And when I said something about it being a job, like, this is the job I want, or this is the career I want, he told me something at the time I had to laugh, which was, he said, tattooing is not a job, it's a lifestyle. And at the time I had to laugh at that, because that sounds, because at least to me it sounds kind of silly. It sounds like we're trying to elevate it to something else, or but once I started tattooing, there was like, it was so true. So true. I get it. And one of the things that a lot of guys would try to do would be, I felt like they were trying to scare me, because they tell you, this is going to eat up your life. You're not going to have time to go to movies with your girl. You're not going to have time for this. You're not going to have time for that. But that's what I wanted. I wanted something that could consume me, that would consume my life. I wanted my career to be my life. And that is one of the things that I get from it, is that it's not this separate thing that when I leave the shop, I'm no longer an artist, or I'm still an artist. I get to live that lifestyle. I get to sort of I do have a boss, but in a way I get to be my own boss. I get to make a lot of decisions on my own. I get to be creative. I am around other creative people. I am rewarded for being creative. I get to be as weird as I can be, and that can be pretty weird. That's really the main thing. That was one of the things that was miserable about working in another job, was being around people who didn't know art, who just thought it was silly. Everything that I did was crazy or weird. And I was a painting contractor. That's what I got stuck doing for a long time. And so I worked, I worked a lot with guys who would say things like, like they had never made it out of the 4th grade, and they'd be like, but I know you got a college degree. I'm making as much as you. And that would be frustrating. So yeah, I get to be creative pretty much all the time. Um, it's a I don't want to say an easy life, but it is much better. I don't go to sleep dreading getting up. I don't even if I know I've got something the next day that's going to be hard or challenging, or I know I'm going to have a difficult client in. I am definitely feeling much better than when I knew I was just going to get up again and go work with have to listen to country music all day
Oh
and,
dear.
and work with guys who their idea of life was like the work and go home and drink and repeat. Um, so that those are several things. Those are several things I got.
Awesome. Um, so we did talk about like the non-monetary things that you get from your job. What is, and if you don't know, I can make sure that I know before I hang out with my students. What is the range of salary? And I know you're in the Chicagoland area, and that can be a little bit more than maybe somewhere else, but
Right.
um,
Um, it varies. Again, the shop I started in wasn't the most professional shop, and we were charging like $30 to $40 an hour. Um, where I am at now, we charge $120 to $150 an hour. I've been in shops that charge 70 to 80. I've been in shops that charge 150 to 200, and I know shops that can charge from 250 to 400. It just depends on the artist. Often it depends on how they pay you. Um, like a hair salon or massage parlor or anything, there are fees that we pay. So if I'm working, most shops will have a split. So half of what I'm charging you will go to the shop. Sometimes it'll be 50-50, sometimes it'll be 60-40. And that can go both ways, 60 to the artist or 60 to the shop. It just depends on where you're at. Um, shop will often let you know what they expect you to pay them. That'll be worked out beforehand. I have been in places that charge a booth fee, like when I was in California. Um, their booth fee was $300 a week, but they expected you to be charging $150 to $200 an hour, which I mean, so an hour or two of worth of work a week would cover that. Whereas, I mean, out here, I pay $1,100 for my house rent, so so that seems kind of outrageous,
yeah.
but yeah, it depends. I could easily, I could see people making as little as 20 to 30 grand a year, and very easily making like 50 to 100 grand a year. It depends on your level. It depends on your shop, and location, who you're associating with, and the work you do.
Is there anything else that you would want to share about your profession with the Weld Central Middle School students?
Oh, there's so much I could say. I mean, it's great. I don't want to be pessimistic. Have other skills. Do other things. I kind of hate saying that. I was lucky. As much as I hated painting, I was lucky to be able to have a career that I could do, that paid my bills until I was able to get into something else. I don't know if there's a movie called Art School Confidential. I'm not saying you need to go see that. But there is a quote in there, and since I heard it, I've run it by other people who've gone to art school, and they've said, teachers of theirs have said something similar. In the movie, John Malkovich plays an art teacher who tells his students on the first day, welcome to art school. Out of every 100 of you that graduate, one of you will get a job that has something to do with art.
Wow.
And I don't think that's too far off. I've heard other teachers just saying 95% of you will not have a job that has anything to do with art. And that's sadly, it's true. You shouldn't be making art because you think it's going to make you money. It has to be a passion. It has to be something that you love, and that you're going to do anyway. Sometimes I'll get some guff. How much time do we have? Sometimes
About 2 minutes.
we good. Oh, okay. There is a difference between artist and tattoo artist. Tattoo artists are people who would make art regardless of what profession they were in. Tattooists are people who just tattoo. Tattooing is a technical skill, just like plumbing or electricity or whatever. There are people who can't draw for crap and are brilliant tattooists because they can render something that looks like you printed out of a machine on you. You have to figure out what your motivation is. Mine was because I wanted to be creative and be in a field where I could make art. Sometimes there's people who they just want to pay their bills and they know they have this skill, and that's fine. I'm not saying one is better than the other or one is higher than the other. There's a big spectrum on either of them. There's a tattoo artists that suck and tattoo artists that are amazing. There's tattooists that suck and there's tattooists that are amazing. One isn't better than the other. I'm not telling you you need to go to one or you need to be one or the other. Just know what your motivations are, and like I said, have other skills. Find out as much as you can about art. Draw. Look at as much art as you can, not just the art that you like, not just tattoo art or comic art or manga or whatever influences you. Look at all the art that you can. Take in as much as you can. Try other arts. Every art that I have done, every medium that I have been in has informed my art in some way. I work with mostly digital, and even that does things. I've known tattoo artists that did tattoos and they made custom motorbikes. I knew tattoo artists, or I know tattoo artists who are tattoo artists and they are authors. Everything will inform you. The more you can connect to that flow state, the more you can connect to that sort of universal mind of being creative, the better. Don't poo-poo anything. Take in all that you can. And I guess that's it.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording. Don't leave. But thank you. And I'm sure that my students, especially the ones who love art, will enjoy hearing all that you had to say about what you create. So thank you again.